The wasteland was silent. Cold winds blew across broken stones and black dust. Burned trees stood like bones. Long ago, this land was full of fire and war. Now, it was nothing but ash and silence. At the center of this dead land, something still breathed. It was large, huge, even when laying down. Scales like black metal covered its body. Its wings were torn, folded weakly by its sides. Deep wounds bled slowly. One eye was shut. The other, barely open, glowed like dim fire. It was an alien dragon predator, the last of its kind. And it was dying. Sarek had once been feared. His roars shook the skies. His fire melted steel. But time and betrayal had broken him. He had fought too long, lost too much. Now, he waited for death. His body ached. His bones felt heavy. He closed his eyes slowly. Let the wind take me, he thought. Let the earth bury me. But fate had another plan. Ellen Walker was not a soldier. She was a medic. She had been sent to this wasteland to recover lost supplies from an old field base. Her boots crunched over cracked ground. Her breath fogged in the cold air. She scanned the area with a handheld tracker. It beeped slowly. "Come on," she whispered. "Just one working med kit." She followed the beeping across a ridge, and then froze. Down, below in a shallow crater, something massive lay still. Smoke curled from its side, scales, blood, claws. Her heart raced. A predator?" she whispered. She dropped to her knees, crawling behind a rock. Her hands shook. Everyone knew the stories. About the alien dragons that burned cities and crushed tanks. The military had spent years hunting them down. None were left, at least. That's what they thought. Ellen peeked again. The creature didn't move. Dead? She slowly stepped closer. Step by step. Her boots sank into soft ash. The wind howled around her. A strange smell filled the air, burned metal and blood. Then it breathed. Slow. Deep. Alive. Ellen gasped and stopped. The dragon's eye opened slightly. Orange. Flame flickered inside. Their eyes met. She could not move. He did not move either. She expected him to growl, roar, snap his jaws. But he didn't. He just watched. Ellen's mind screamed, "Run!" But her heart whispered, "Stay." He's hurt, she realized. Badly. Maybe dying. She looked at his wounds. So deep. So many. She took a slow breath. "I'm not here to hurt you," she said softly. The dragon blinked. His chest rose and fell slowly. No answer, but no attack. Her training kicked in. Ellen slowly opened her med pack. She didn't step too close. Just near enough to see better. "You're bleeding a lot," she said. "I don't know if I can help, but I'll try." Still no attack. She pulled out her scanner and aimed it at him. The screen blinked with warnings. "Organ damage, broken, bones, blood loss, you should be dead," she whispered. She took out a small spray, something to stop bleeding. "I'm going to touch your side," she said carefully. "If you want me to stop, growl or blink." She waited. No growl, no blink. She stepped forward. Just enough. The dragon didn't move. Ellen touched his side and sprayed the foam. Steam hissed. The dragon flinched but didn't strike. He allowed it. Hours passed. Ellen worked quietly. She cleaned wounds. Closed some with patches. Gave painkillers through her last injector. She even used pieces of cloth to tie the worst injuries. The dragon never spoke, never moved much. But he watched her, always watching. When the sun began to fall, she finally sat back exhausted. "You'll live, maybe," she said, wiping sweat from her forehead. "But don't expect magic. I'm not a miracle worker." The dragon's eye blinked, and then his deep voice echoed, rough and dry. "Why, help me." Ellen froze. Her eyes went wide. You speak? A slow breath. Not often, she swallowed hard. I helped you because no one else would. You were left to die. That's not right. The dragon closed his eye again. Strange. Human. She smiled weakly. You have no idea. As the cold night came, Ellen made a small fire nearby. She sat close, wrapping her coat tighter. The dragon lay still, his breath quieter now, but not gone. Alive. Somewhere in the stars, the world still believed that all predators like Zarek were monsters. But here, in this wasteland, a dying beast and a lone medic had met, and something had changed. Morning came cold and gray. Thin clouds moved slowly in the sky. The wind still carried ash, but there was a new sound in the air. Breathing, slow, deep, alive. Zarek, the old alien dragon predator, opened one eye again. The human was still there. She hadn't run. She hadn't screamed. She hadn't left. She sat by a small fire, arms wrapped around herself, shivering, still watching him, still waiting. Ellen looked up when she heard movement. She grabbed her medkit and rushed to his side. You're awake again, she whispered, kneeling. That's a good sign. Zarek's eye followed her slowly. His jaw moved, but his voice was low. You stayed. I said I would. She smiled. Besides, you'd never make it through the night alone. He looked confused. You helped your enemy. Ellen gently wiped some dried blood from his side. Maybe. Or maybe you're just a dying soul in need. He blinked slowly. Ellen sighed. I was a military medic once. Saw many creatures hurt. Some were soldiers. Some were civilians. Some I couldn't even name. But pain looks the same in everyone. She paused. My brother died on this planet. She said softly. I couldn't save him. I won't leave someone else to die. Zarek was quiet, but deep inside something in him stirred. Hours passed. Ellen moved between helping and resting. She boiled water over her tiny stove. She crushed herbs, mixed, salves, rewrapped his wounds. Zarek didn't growl or bite. He allowed her near. He even lifted his wings slightly when she needed to check his side. Trust was forming, slow and silent. That afternoon, while applying a patch to his shoulder, she asked, What's your name? The dragon's voice was a whisper of fire. Zarek. She repeated it slowly. Zarek, I'm Ellen. A small spark flickered in his eyes. Your voice does not carry fear. Ellen smiled. I'm scared, just hiding it better than most. Later, Ellen found pieces of metal and wires from broken drones nearby. She returned to the cave, hands full. Zarek tilted his head slightly. You gather junk? She grinned. I make things out of junk like splints, heaters, even simple scanners, old habit. She showed him a small heating coil she made and placed it near his chest. It gave off faint warmth. Zarek closed his eyes, relaxing slightly. As night came, Zarek spoke again. I was once feared, he said quietly. Even by my kind. I believe it, Ellen replied with a chuckle. I led many, burned many worlds. Then, one day they left me behind. Why? I aged, slower, weaker, no longer needed. Ellen's smile faded. I know how that feels, she said. When the war ended, they had no use for a medic. I became nothing. Zarek looked at her. You are not nothing. She blinked, surprised. He continued. You saved me. You made fire. You gave care. That is not nothing. The wind outside howled louder. Ellen pulled her jacket tighter. She sat beside Zarek, arms around her knees. Funny, she said. I thought I came here to find medicine, he rumbled softly. Perhaps you found purpose. Ellen looked at him. And maybe you didn't come here to die, not yet. Suddenly the sound of wings flapping echoed in the distance. Ellen tensed. Zarek's eye narrowed. Hunters. She stood quickly. How many? Zarek sniffed the air. 3, maybe 4. Scavengers. They come for my bones. Ellen's heart pounded. Can you fight? No. Can you move? No. She grabbed her shock pistol and stood in front of the cave opening. Zarek growled. Run. I'm not leaving you. You will die. Then they'll have to kill me after they get through you. Zarek's breath caught. This. Human. She didn't run. Far across the hills, dark shapes flew closer. Ellen raised her weapon with shaking hands. Zarek, broken and weak, lifted his head slightly. His chest burned. A glow built in his throat. Tiny but real. The dragon was still alive, and beside him stood a human who refused to run. The shadows grew larger in the sky. 3 winged shapes circled above the canyon. Black armor, sharp claws, eyes that glowed green, scavenger hunters. They didn't come to help. They came for trophies, and the old wounded dragon below them, Zarek, was worth more than credits. His skull, his teeth, even his scales were valuable in black markets, but they didn't expect someone to be standing guard. They didn't expect a human. Ellen Walker stood outside the small cave. Her pistol shook in her hands, but she didn't move. Her heart pounded in her chest like a drum. She looked back once at Zarek. He was trying to lift his head, but the pain was too much. Still, he growled. He was trying to protect her even now. The scavengers landed near the rocks, tall, thin, their faces hidden under metal masks. They carried rifles and curved blades. One of them spoke in a rough, metallic voice. Step aside, human. That beast is ours, Ellen shouted. He's dying, he's no threat. The leader laughed. Exactly, easy kill. We cut, we sell, we leave, don't be stupid. She raised her pistol. Take one more step and I'll shoot. The other 2 laughed. The leader didn't. You're brave, but foolish. Zarek's eye opened wider. He saw Ellen standing between him and death. He had seen this before, long ago. A comrade standing for him. That comrade had died. He wouldn't let it happen again. Zarek focused. The pain screamed in his bones, but he reached into his body. Deeper. Into the ancient fire still left in his chest. A faint glow returned to his throat. It hurt, but he didn't care. Not this time. The scavengers moved closer. The leader raised his weapon. Ellen fired first. 1 shot. Hit the ground. Second shot. Missed again. The pistol clicked empty. Her hands trembled. The leader smiled and aimed his rifle. And then, a roar. Loud. Thunderous. The sky shook. The scavengers froze. Behind Ellen, Zarek pulled himself forward. Wings dragging in the dust, smoke rose from his jaws. His chest glowed with deep orange fire. He stood, weak, bleeding, but tall. The leader shouted, "Impossible! He's half dead!" Zarek stepped forward, flame dripping from his teeth. He growled, something in his language. Ellen didn't understand the words, but she understood the message. Leave now, or burn. The scavengers took a step back. The smallest one turned and ran. The second followed. Only the leader stood his ground. You're just a dying lizard, Zarek roared again, and fire burst forward. Not strong, not wide, but enough to scorch the rocks near the hunter's feet. The leader jumped back, cursed, and finally ran. They disappeared into the smoke. Gone. Ellen dropped to her knees in shock. Zarek fell beside her, breathing hard. You stood, she whispered. He didn't answer. He just closed his eyes, shaking from pain. She rushed to him. No, stay awake. I need to check you. She pulled out her tools again. His chest was bleeding badly from where he forced himself up. You idiot, she said. You could have died. He opened one eye. You stood first. Ellen smiled through tears. Yeah, I guess I did. Later, that night, the fire burned low. Zarek lay still, his breath shallow but steady. Ellen sat beside him, wrapping bandages again. Her hands were tired, but she didn't stop. As she worked, Zarek began to hum. It wasn't a song. It was a low, strange sound, like wind through stone, a sound from his people. Ellen looked at him. "What is that?" "Old call," he said. "For those who suffer. A call to say, you're not alone." Ellen swallowed hard. No one had ever said that to her, not in a long time. "You understand pain?" Zarek said slowly. "Yes," Ellen whispered. He looked at her with tired eyes. "You speak the language of pain." She smiled, soft and sad. "Maybe that's why I hear you." That night, for the first time, Ellen didn't sleep far away. She slept beside him, and Zarek didn't dream of fire and death anymore. He dreamed of a human voice and warmth. The next morning, smoke still drifted through the canyon. Ellen woke, up stiff and cold, curled next to Zarek. The fire had died. Her back ached and her fingers were numb. But the dragon beside her was breathing, slow and steady. She sat up and checked his wounds. Still bleeding, but less alive. She smiled. "You stubborn thing." Zarek opened one eye. "Still here?" She nodded. "And so are you?" But peace didn't last. Her scanner beeped. Once, then again. Faster. She frowned. That wasn't good. She stood and checked the screen. A small light blinked. Movement. Multiple signals. Getting closer. Ellen's face went pale. "It's not scavengers this time," she whispered. "Too organized, too fast." Zarek's voice was low. "What is it?" She gulped. "A military cleanup squad. They must have picked up your energy spike. Or my beacon." Zarek tried to move, but groaned in pain. "No," she said. "You can't fight them." "Not like this," he growled. "Then you must leave." She stared at him. "I'm not leaving you." "You'll die." "So what?" "I already made that choice once." Ellen quickly packed what little gear she had. She covered Zarek's body with camouflage sheets from her kit, placed heat shields over his chest to hide thermal readings, and rubbed dirt over the rocks. She set decoy flares near the edge of the canyon. Then she looked at Zarek one last time. "If I don't come back, don't die alone." He blinked once. "Come back." She gave a small smile. "I'll try." Then she ran. She moved fast through the canyon. Her heart beat loudly in her ears. Soon she saw them. 4 soldiers, in black armor, helmets with red lights. They were scanning the area. Ellen raised her hands and walked out. "Wait, I'm here." They pointed guns at her instantly. "Identify yourself," one shouted. "Medic Ellen Walker, civilian now. I was recovering lost supplies." "Alone?" "Yes," she lied. "What was that heat burst?" She shrugged. "Old tech. I triggered a faulty reactor. Had to hide in a cave overnight." The soldiers whispered to each other. "She's lying," one said. Another checked the scanner. Something big was here. Something still is. The leader stepped forward. "Show us." Ellen looked calm. "Fine." She led them, not toward the cave, but toward the opposite direction, toward where she placed the decoys. As they walked, the scanner pinged again. "Over there." One shouted. The soldiers rushed forward. As soon as they reached the heat source, a flare exploded in smoke and heat. "Ambush!" one shouted. "No, it's a fake!" Too late. Ellen threw a flash charge. The canyon lit up white. She ran. Back toward Zarek. Her lungs burned. Her legs hurt, but she didn't stop. Behind her, the soldiers recovered quickly. "She tricked us, back to the cave." They chased her. Bullets whizzed past. She rolled down into the crater, slid across ash, and reached Zarek. "They're coming!" Zarek tried to lift himself but collapsed, his body still broken. Ellen raised her pistol again, but she knew it was useless. They were outnumbered. She stood in front of him anyway. The soldiers arrived, weapons drawn. "Step aside," the leader barked. "No," Ellen said, voice shaking. I won't let you kill him. He's dangerous. He's the reason planets burned. He's not that creature anymore. He doesn't deserve to live. Maybe not, she said. But neither do most of us. The leader stepped forward. Ellen didn't move. Behind her, Zarek whispered, "Move, please." "No," she whispered back. "Not again." The soldier raised his weapon. Then, the ground shook, a low rumble, a growl. Zarek forced himself. Up wings dragged, claws dug into stone. He bared his teeth, and his voice, louder this time, echoed through the canyon. "She is under my flame. Leave, or be turned to ash." The soldiers froze. Even wounded, he was terrifying. The leader shouted, "Open fire!" But Zarek's chest glowed once more. A burst of flame, stronger than before, erupted from his jaws. The ground lit up. Soldiers scattered. One fell screaming. Another ran. Only two remained. Ellen grabbed the leader's dropped rifle and aimed it. The last two soldiers backed off slowly. "You're insane." One yelled. "Go," she said. They ran. Silence returned. Zarek fell again, exhausted. Ellen dropped the gun and ran to his side. "You did it," she whispered. "You protected me." He looked at her with weak but proud eyes. "You protected me first." That night they stayed hidden in the dark cave, wounded, tired, but alive. For the first time, Zarek closed his eyes without fear, because he knew someone would guard him now. The stars above the canyon blinked faintly. Night had fallen again. Inside the cave, Ellen sat with her back against the rock wall, rifle resting across her knees. She didn't sleep. Her eyes stayed open, watching the entrance. Zarek lay near, the back of the cave, breathing softly. Every rise and fall of his chest was a small victory. He was still alive. But for how long? She checked the last pain injector in her medkit. Just one left. His wounds were deep. His fire had nearly burned him from the inside. And now, there were no more supplies, no more backup, no more soldiers coming. They were on their own. Ellen walked over and knelt beside him. "Zarek?" she whispered. His eyes opened slowly. Tired but clear. "You should rest," he rumbled. She smiled. "So should you." He tried to sit up, but pain gripped his muscles. Ellen reached out to steady. "Careful." "I'm still breathing," he said. "That surprises me." "Me too," she joked gently. They sat in silence. Only the wind spoke now, whispering past the rocks. Finally, Ellen asked the question that had been burning in her mind. "Why didn't you give up?" Zarek's head turned toward her. "You were the first to stand, not in fear but in care. That gave me reason." Ellen looked down. "I didn't do it because I'm brave. I was just tired of seeing things die alone." He was quiet. Then he asked, "Do you wish you never found me?" She looked him in the eye. "No, I'm glad I did." He blinked slowly. "You risked everything. For me. You deserved that risk," she said, "even if you don't think so." Zarek exhaled a smoky breath. "I've burned many lives, Ellen. I've seen whole cities turn to ash because of me. What if I rise again? What if I lose control?" Ellen shook her head. "Then I'll remind you. I'll stand in front of you again, and again, until you remember who stood in front of you when no one else did." Zarek stared at her. Something in his heart stirred, something ancient. Not fire, not rage. Hope. Morning light crept through the cave mouth. Zarek sat up, slowly this time. His wings dragged behind him. His strength was returning, but he wasn't healed yet. Ellen packed her bag. "We need to move soon. This place isn't safe anymore." Zarek growled low. "Where will we go?" "There's a small human outpost. Few days' walk from here. They know me. If we make it there, they might not shoot you on sight." Zarek smirked. Just a little. I am hard to miss. Ellen chuckled. That's an understatement. They began the journey slowly. Ellen walked, checking the scanner, watching the sky. Zarek followed behind, limping but steady. His wings were tied close with rope to keep them from dragging too much. He wore a long blanket over his back, Ellen's idea to hide him from satellites. They moved mostly at night, resting during the day. The desert was cold, quiet, but they kept going. One night they stopped near an old wrecked transport. Ellen lit a small fire. Zarek sat beside her. And then, he spoke again. You gave me a second chance. I want to ask, why me? She didn't answer right away. Instead, she pointed at the stars above. You see those? She asked. He nodded. My brother and I used to look at them when we were kids. We used to believe every star had someone lonely. Beneath it, Zarek looked up. Do they? I don't know, she said, but I know one of them had you under it, and I was under another. Maybe we weren't supposed to stay lonely forever. Zarek lowered his head slowly. His voice was softer now. I don't want to be a weapon anymore. Ellen placed her hand on his massive claw. Then don't be. Be something more. Be someone more. That night, Zarek dreamed again. But this time, he didn't see fire. He saw a woman standing in front of him, and beside her, he saw himself, not as a monster, but as a guardian. The third night of walking was the coldest. The moonlight lit the desert floor like ice. The wind howled through the rocks, sharp as knives. Ellen pulled her jacket tighter and checked the scanner again. Still nothing. But her gut whispered otherwise. Zarek walked behind her. Slower now, not from pain, but caution. His nostrils flared and his yellow eyes scanned the ridges. I feel eyes, he growled. Ellen turned her head. I know. Me too. They stopped beneath a broken satellite dish that had crashed long ago. It offered no real cover, but it was enough for one night. Ellen sat down and laid out the emergency blanket. Zarek didn't sit. He stood facing the canyon wall, wings twitching. He could smell something. Something wrong. Far above, hidden between black stone and shadow, something crouched. It had no name anymore, just a code. VAR Unit 6. A remnant of war. A machine built from alien and human tech. Abandoned. Reprogrammed. Forgotten. It had watched the fire in the sky. It had heard Zarek's roar. And now, it had found him. Its lenses zoomed in on the dragon and the human woman beside him. Its orders, long buried in corrupted memory, resurfaced. Target, dragon-class weapon. If active, eliminate. If in recovery, observe and terminate later. Down. Below, Ellen reached for her final pain injector. She knelt beside Zarek. You need this. Zarek looked up at the stars. We are close? Maybe one more day. He nodded. She pressed the injector into his neck. He growled lightly at the sting. Then silence again. The wind changed. Zarek's head snapped toward the ridge. Something's coming, he said. Ellen grabbed her rifle. What? I don't know. But it does not breathe like a living thing. She froze. A drone? No, he growled. Older, deadlier. Then they heard it. Metal scraping rock, a high-pitched hum, and a voice. Cold, hollow, Zarek, class, Omega Flame, status, breathing, error, correction required. From the shadows a shape jumped, black metal, long arms, eyes like burning glass. VAR Unit 6, Ellen fired her rifle. One shot hit. Sparks flew. The machine didn't stop. Zarek lunged forward with a weak roar. The machine dodged. Too fast, it lashed out. A blade on its arm sliced into Zarek's shoulder. He stumbled, bleeding again. Ellen ran between them, firing again, and, again. Click. Empty. She pulled her knife, small and shaky in her grip. The machine swatted her away like dust. She hit the ground hard. Zarek stood again, fire flickering in his chest, but weak. Not enough for a blast, he charged. The machine caught him mid-leap and slammed him into the sand, metal fingers wrapped around his throat. Termination required. System purge initiated. Ellen coughed, crawled to her bag. She pulled out her old EMP stick. She hadn't used it in years. It barely held a charge. But it was all she had. She stood, ran, and slammed it into the machine's back. Loud pop. Blue sparks exploded. The machine screamed in digital static. It dropped Zarek and stumbled. Zarek wasted no time. He spun and slammed his tail into its chest. The impact sent it flying into a rock wall. Stone cracked. Metal cracked louder. The machine twitched once, then went still. Smoke rose from its chest. Dead again. Ellen fell to her knees. Zarek dropped beside her, gasping. "You were right," he said. "About what?" "We were being watched." She looked up at the stars. "Now, they know you're alive," Zarek growled. "Let them come." Ellen reached out and held his claw. "Not yet. We still have to reach the outpost. Then, we fight together." He nodded. But in the hills beyond, red lights blinked. More machines, more watchers. The real battle was only beginning. Morning came like a slow breath. The sun rose over the desert, casting long shadows and soft light on the battered ground. Smoke curled from the wrecked machine that had tried to kill them. Its body lay broken, wires exposed, one red eye still, faintly glowing before it faded to black. Ellen sat quietly, her back against Zarek's massive shoulder. She hadn't slept, but she wasn't afraid anymore. Not of machines, not of death, not of the road ahead. Zarek moved slightly. His body was weak, but something had changed in him. Not just the healing, something deeper. He looked at the woman who had saved him. Again and again, she had chosen to fight, to bleed, to stand, for him. "Do you still believe I can be more?" Zarek asked. Ellen nodded slowly. "I already see it. You're not the beast they remember. You're the one I do." Zarek let the silence stretch. Then he stood. Not straight, not strong, but with purpose. "We must move," he said, "before more hunters come." Ellen checked the map. "We're close. The outpost is just beyond the ridge." They packed what little they had left. Ellen carried her scanner and rifle. Zarek dragged a makeshift wrap of cloth around his wounds. Each step forward felt like a promise. As they reached the hill's peak, they saw it, nestled in a deep valley, surrounded by defensive walls and blinking towers, the human outpost. Ellen let out a shaky breath. "We made it." Zarek remained still. "Will they accept me?" Ellen looked at him. "They'll try to kill you first." Zarek raised an eyebrow. "Comforting." She grinned. "But I'll speak for you." He didn't ask how she knew. They'd listen. He believed her. That was enough. They approached the outer edge of the base. Cameras turned. Guns locked on them. Zarek stood tall. Ellen walked ahead with her hands raised. A voice boomed from the loudspeakers. "Stop! Identify!" she shouted back. "Medic Ellen Walker! I'm not alone!" The gates didn't open, but a door on the tower above slid aside. A figure stepped out, armored in white and gold. Commander Ruth Calder. Her voice was sharp. "That thing with you, it's the dragon from the Omega Files." "Yes," Ellen said, loud and firm. "And he's not a thing. He saved my life. You brought a weapon of mass destruction to our gate. I brought a life worth saving, to your wire." Silence afterwards stretched. Ruth finally said, "Step forward, both of you, slowly." They entered the base under heavy watch. Soldiers aimed weapons at Zarek from every tower. Zarek said nothing. He could have crushed them, but he didn't. He stood still, proud, calm. Ellen walked beside him, hand on his claw. Inside the command room, Ellen faced Ruth and the others. "He's not here to destroy," she said. "He's here because I chose to save him." Ruth looked at the bandages, the burn marks, the broken machine parts. "You chose this? I chose hope," Ellen said. "And he chose to live." There was debate. Voices rose. Fears returned. Some called for his execution, others watched silently, and then Zarek stepped forward. He bowed his head, not in weakness, but in peace. "I burned worlds," he said. "But this human reminded me of something I had forgotten: honor, life, and the chance to protect instead of destroy." It was not easy. It took hours. But in the end, he was allowed to stay. On one condition: he would serve, not rule, protect, not punish. Weeks passed. Zarek healed. He stayed near the base, helped rebuild defense towers, lifted metal with ease, and trained with humans who had once feared him. Children began calling him Big Flame. Ellen built a small clinic on the edge of the camp. They saw each other every day. One evening, as the twin moons rose, Ellen walked to her favorite spot on the wall. Zarek was already there, watching the stars. She smiled. "Still looking up?" He nodded. "I think one of those stars is mine now." She tilted her head. "Why?" "Because I've chosen not to burn it." She laughed. Then she leaned on his shoulder. "Do you still dream?" she asked. "Yes," he said. "Of fire?" He looked at her. "No. I dream of a woman who stood before a dying beast and said, 'Live.'" She smiled, eyes misty. "Good, because that's how I'll always see you." And there, under the stars, a human who once stood alone, and a dragon who once burned galaxies, watched the night sky together. No longer enemies, but family.